Start first off, the food. I mean, top-notch stuff, right?
Absolutely. For those who watch their cholesterol.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Don't worry about any of that. Just talk a little bit about it. Scott was a friend of yours.
He's got 30 years.
Yeah, tell me about him.
Gregarious, outgoing. While we would sit outside and eat, he would work the parking lots. And they put a lot of pride in the food they cooked there. For Scott, it was almost like a symphony in some ways, where you would kind of see him swaying and sashaying and flipping the burgers and stirring the chili.
Show, huh?
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
It was, Scotty, as I called him, Scotty was very symphonic, in the way that he handled the care of the craft of the food that they served.
And they served everybody. It didn't matter who you were, if you were a banker, a businessman, the cop down the street, the firefighter, the guy who drove truck. It didn't matter.
How many businesses, Jamie, are built on cinder blocks and become a melting pot, from the standpoint of where it didn't matter if Republican or Democrat was behind your name. The regulars included former Charlotte Mayor Richard Vinroot. When we got word of this crime this morning, one of the first phone calls I got was from former State Representative Joel Ford. And, I've been behind that grill and just the care that they take, and everybody was treated with a lot of respect and a lot of dignity.
There are certain places around Charlotte that have sort of had, remember the old coffee cup was sort of that way. Prices is that way.
Yes.
And, it's nice to be able to hold on to these places because they are important to the community.
It is, but in many respects, tough day, rough day. And, for those of us in the business of television news, I mean, not to diminish anyone's misery or pain, but when you know somebody, it hurts. I've probably taken every photographer that I've ever worked with here at WBTV in the last 20 years. Crumpy, we going to Brooks for lunch today? And I've talked to some of the guys, in the newsroom, that were driving when I was riding shotgun. You know how this business goes. We don't have a lot of time, so you're grabbing it to go or whatever. And they, this has just abjectly affected so many people.
That's the thing about it, and it spread quickly around town. It didn't take any time at all before really all corners of this community had heard this news.
Well, not only that, the city manager's office, it had played out there. I mean, from the standpoint of where the city managers, and I have sources there and was, working sources during a medical appointment today, and I could tell that they were holding back. I knew that they knew, but they weren't giving it up. And, within a half hour after that is when we got the tragic news. And one other point, with that being right at Brevard and Davidson, they were right down the street from Fire Station number 7. And one of the folks that I know inside, the public safety community here, basically said the guys from 7 took the call and left at 8 o'clock this morning. So, at the lunch hour, you see people there in banker suits and construction, hard hats, school teachers that have snuck away for a while. I mean, it was that kind of a gathering spot. And Scotty was a guy that demonstrated a lot of integrity. One of the last things I remember, in terms of seeing Scott a few times this year, was we did a piece with him on the lofts in Noda and how that development has taken off. But the other side is I remember back towards the summer, and myself, Scotty, and a minister friend of theirs, we all sat in the parking lot and held hands and we prayed. And the last time I saw Scott, and he had recently had knee replacement in the past few months, and I kept saying, I gotta call him, call him, and I didn't. But the last time I saw him, I ended up with all this free food, and that he ends up handing to my wife, and we end up with some of something he took a lot of pride in, which was Brooks Chili, which had a short run at Harris Teeter.
His dad's recipe, right? If memory
serves. It was his dad's recipe, and going back to his father, depending on the day that you were there, you could see their dad pouring iced tea in styrofoam cups. So Dad, in spite of living in life's sunset years, never gave it up.
It's a painful day for many. I know it's a painful day for you, and I appreciate you
He
coming in
and
tonight to talk about
our
it.
John Carter were golfing buddies, and I heard from John earlier today, and he told me that once he had heard about there being some trouble there, he had reached out to Scotty and didn't hear back.
Awful stuff. Steve, appreciate you coming
Thank
in,
you,
my
buddy.
friend, as always. This really all ties also to the WBTV special that is airing this Wednesday. Voices Behind the Violence is exploring the rising homicide rate, why there's so much violence, and the people it's hurting. You can watch that Wednesday night right here on WBTV from 7 until 8 o'clock. Again, Steve, thank you.